Hello and welcome to a new series of videos that I'm calling Signs and Wonders. So the best way to start for the first one in the series is to have a quick review of what we might consider would be a sign or a wonder. Now, quite a few years ago, when I was first writing books about angels for the Mind, Body, Spirit publisher Piatkus, I was in contact, obviously, with other people who were doing angel workshops and so forth. And I went to meet another lady who was teaching workshops about angels, and we arranged to meet in London in the British Museum. Now, at that stage, I hadn't really got my head into the mode of white feathers. But we went into the museum, we went deep into an area where there's a cafe, and it's a long way from the door. You can guess what's going to happen, I think. But it was really special because we both went to the counter and collected a tray, and we said, oh, let's choose that table right over in the corner. There's just two chairs there, just right for us. So we went into the corner, and there, underneath the table that we'd chosen, was a white feather. Now, clearly, you know, in the middle of London, there are lots of pigeons flying around, and certainly around the entrance to the British Museum there are. But this was a long, long way into the museum. And even if it had blown in some way from a pigeon, the very fact that it had arrived under our chosen table in the cafe, which, as I say, was a very long way from the front door, did make us quite astounded, actually. We both looked at each other and said, whoa, that is a white feather moment, isn't it? Now, I'll tell you a couple of other signs that I've had that were significant in my life. One was when I had married Will. We'd been married for a couple of years, and although I already had two children, we thought that, you know, we would have a baby. And it hadn't been happening. So we just kind of thought, well, if it's going to happen, you know, just allow it. So one day I was in my sewing workshop in the middle of Oxford. That was where we lived at the time. And Will went out to get some sandwiches. And it was quite a sunny day. And I'd got the windows open. We were high up in a building called the Old Fire Station, where they were letting out rooms to artists and people like us, you know, dressmaking and all that kind of thing. And I was busy at the table, and I became aware of some action happening near the window. And I turned round and I saw this little yellow bird. And it was like a little canary or something. And it hopped on the window ledge, but actually hopped right in onto the dressmaker's table. And I sort of, part of me went, oh, how magic is that? And almost immediately, something in me knew that this was a sign, and that it was a sign that I was actually pregnant. Now, this was very interesting to me at the time because I hadn't been previously the kind of person who would automatically think, oh, you know, a bird arriving is going to be the sign of a new baby. It wasn't in my way of thinking, not at that time. But I really knew that that was a sign, and it was indeed a sign. And a few months later, I had a dear little Gemini baby girl. And I've always thought that actually a little yellow bird is quite nice for a Gemini baby. So, a few years down the line, when I wasn't hoping to get pregnant, I had learnt transcendental meditation, advanced meditation techniques. And interestingly, the teacher had said to the group that she wanted to warn any women in the group that they should be extra careful in their relationships, because she said, when these people learn these kind of advanced meditation techniques, what she described as angels, souls looking for good homes, will be hanging around and you might get caught unawares. And I didn't think anything of it because I certainly wasn't planning to have another baby. So a little bit later, I think it was in December, and that's important, the fact that it was in December, I was in my bedroom in a meditation state, and with these advanced techniques, they're long sessions, like an hour or more, and I became aware of something fluttering, and I opened my eyes, and there was a red admiral in the room and moving around the area around my head, and I was really taken aback because you wouldn't expect to see a red admiral at that time of year at all. So after my meditation, I went down and I spoke to Will, and I said, look, I've seen this butterfly. And on this occasion, I immediately thought, well, I said to Will, I hope it doesn't mean that there's another baby coming. But there was, and she was very welcome. And this was a Libra baby. And in retrospect, I've always thought that a butterfly is a very special sign for a Libra baby girl. So those were two occasions when I particularly had signs. Oh, and by the way, one thing, I'll just go back to that story about not expecting to see a red admiral in the middle of winter. I not quite recently actually heard a radio program about the fact that the red admirals do appear later in the year, but they said that was something recent. And the man actually said, 30, 40 years ago, you would definitely not have expected to see a red admiral in December. So that kind of confirmed to me the fact that it was a very unusual occurrence. And that's what a sign is. A sign is a kind of unusual occurrence that takes you kind of like unexpected, and you think to yourself, is there some kind of meaning in that? Some kind of synchronicity of some kind? And it's also worth thinking that often, especially when it's related to the coming and going of a soul, whether a new soul coming in or an old soul leaving, we often get associations with birds, and sometimes with butterflies, and sometimes with feathers. And they are all representative of something that moves easily in the air. So it's that those signs are coming to us through the air, and they seem to be related to souls and also to perhaps angelic or celestial messengers of some kind. Whereas if you experienced a sign that was more to do with perhaps with growth or something more earthy, like a nature spirit, then you would probably get a different kind of sign. For example, quite recently, I found a rather curious little twig in my garden. And when I looked at it, it was quite, it seemed to be quite elemental. And on that particular occasion, I had been thinking about something elemental and grounded. So when we look or experience signs, then the sign somehow takes on some appropriate formula or form, and it can come to us very obviously through the natural world, and the natural world can deliver messages in different elemental ways. So I just mentioned the twig, which was very grounded and earthy, but you could get messages and signs. You could experience them near water and so forth. And of course, people have used all these different elements in order to go through various methods for divination. People use sand for divination, shaking a sand tray and making a shape that you can read. Or tea leaves, actually, would also be in that category. Also, fire. Nostradamus famously just looked into a fire, looked into the flames in order to create his prophecies. So the world, the outside world that we experience through our five senses is always giving us messages. They're always there. And it's only when something particular or peculiar happens that we tend to notice them. So the signs are always around us, and we only have to look out for them and then interpret them. And when we get something unexpected happen, like a bird or a butterfly or a white feather, that's one thing, because it's almost as though something is calling our attention to it. But if we have considered something and we ask for a sign, then we go out into the world and we keep alert, we keep our attention ready. Say, okay, where is the sign that I need to confirm what I've been feeling? Is there something that can come back to me as a response from the world to say, yes, 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 you are on the right track here? And of course, one of the things that we can do when we want to get answers like that, we can use different oracles. And that might be a subject for another episode, the different oracles that we can choose to use. But, most of you will probably have a tarot pack, or you may use I Ching or other forms of divination, runes, for example, or even the angel script is an oracle of a kind. And some of the oracles are very good at prediction. Some of the oracles are simply there to tell you that you need to consider your options. I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but advise you about the nature of time. I Ching is especially good at that, and astrology, of course. So the signs are always available to us, and the wonders are there as well, because this is a wonderful place that we live in. So I'll be back again before long with more signs and wonders. Many blessings, and remember to keep shining.